Hello boys and girls, this is Mrs. Winker-Vasu, and today we're going to be covering Chapter 5, Lesson 5.1, Ratios and Rates. Reference pages to this could be found in your textbooks, pages 126 and 127. As a reminder, don't forget to copy down everything you see in this video for full credit in your notebook. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with some vocabulary. The first vocabulary we're going to talk about is a ratio. What is a ratio? A ratio is basically a comparison of two quantities. So if I were to talk about 3 and 4, you can write that using a division sign, 3 over 4. So basically, a ratio is a fraction. If I ask you in class, what is a ratio? You can say a ratio is a fraction. Now, a fraction can also be written in two other ways I want to let you know. It can be written as 3 and using the word 2, 4. It could also be written with a colon, 3, 2, 4. But the most common one we'll use in this chapter and in this lesson is going to be the fraction form of a ratio. So this one that I box here in this rectangle will be the most common one we'll use. So this is a ratio. A ratio is a fraction. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to our next vocabulary word. And again, if I'm going too fast in the video or if there is something that you needed to copy that you didn't get a chance to, feel free to pause it and press play when you're ready. Okay, a rate. What is a rate? So a rate is basically a ratio. So if I took the number 60 over 2 only and not look at the miles and hours, that is a ratio. It's just a number of two quantities using division. So a number using a division sign with two numbers. Now, but since we're talking about a ratio, in a ratio you have to have not only the two numbers using a division, you also have to have two quantities, in other words, two units, two different units. So here we have the quantity of miles and the quantity of hours. Notice they're two different ones. It's not miles and miles or hours and hours. It's miles per hour. So this is a rate. Now, another common rate you might hear is also when you're typing words per minute, or in music, beats per minute. So rate is basically a ratio of two quantities with different units. Two quantities, different units. Okay? All right, moving on to the next vocabulary word is going to be a unit rate. Now, a unit rate is the rate in which the denominator is 1. Now, to get a unit rate, it comes from a rate. If you are given a rate, for example, we have here a rate of 60 miles for 2 hours. Let's say you traveled to San Diego and you traveled 60 miles and it took you 2 hours. A unit rate is basically the per one. So how many miles would you travel per the 1 hour? It's usually written at the bottom, the 1. So to do that, all we're going to do is take the rate and divide it. So we took the top divided by the bottom. So I have here the work here. Top goes in, 60. Bottom goes out. And once you get that number on top, that answer, that's going to be the numerator, and the bottom will just be 1. So it takes you 30 miles for 1 hour. Again, a unit rate is just the rate in which the denominator is 1. The per one of something. So let's say you type 50 words in 2 minutes. Well, we can take 50, half of 50 is 25, and then half of 2 minutes is 1 minute. So 50 words, 2 minutes, 25 words, 1 minute. And we'll talk more about unit rate and ratios more in class, and we're going to practice them a lot in this chapter. So if it didn't make sense to you, again, ask me questions tomorrow, and also we're going to do a lot of practice on these throughout the chapter. Okay? All right, so speaking of practice, we're going to go ahead and start on our first example. Example 1 about ratios and rates. So I have here, it says there are 45 males and 60 females in a subway car. The subway car travels 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. So in question A, they're asking us to find the ratio of males to females. And again, for a ratio, you only need to have them written as a fraction, no units necessary. So we're going to talk about males and females here. So it's males to females, actually males to females here. And since they're talking about 45, we're going to go ahead and put 45 as our numerator, because males is what is mentioned first. That's how I know it's 45 first. And then females is mentioned second, so 60 is at the bottom. Now, I have here what is called a ratio. Now, this is a ratio, but the problem is that this ratio is not simplified. So to simplify this ratio, what we're going to do is we're going to reduce it by 15. So I'm going to divide this by 15. Again, if you chose 5 or another number, it works too, but again, you just have to reduce it more and more. So 45 into 15 is 3, and 60 into 15 is 4. So my final answer is going to be Males to females is 3/4. Okay, so now to do the next part, they're asking us to find the speed of the subway. Well, we technically already know the speed of the subway. It's 2.5 miles for 5 minutes. What they are not telling you they really want to know is we want to know what's the speed for 1 minute. Now, if you remember, the per one of something really means that you're finding the, what is called the unit. I'm going to write it down, unit rate. Unit rate. So to find the unit rate, all we're going to do is we're going to divide the top into the bottom. So 2.5 divided by 5, and that's going to give us decimal here, 5 on top here, and 25 here. So that's going to give us a total of 0.5. What that 0.5 really means is that we're going to say 0.5, using the same units here, miles is 1 minute. Remember, the per one always is at the bottom because that's going to be our unit rate. So the per one is right there. 1 minute, in 1 minute, it takes you half a mile. In 5 minutes, it takes you 2.5 miles. So this is the unit rate part, okay? Again, we're going to be practicing this a lot throughout the chapter, throughout this lesson. So if it's still confusing to you, please ask questions in class. All right. So in example 2, we're going to go ahead and find our rate. So to find our rate, we're going to look at this table. And in this table, it shows the cost of different amounts of artificial turf. Artificial turf is basically fake grass. So we want to find the unit rate in dollars per square foot. So notice I underline here per square foot because we want to know how much it costs for 1 square foot. We know that according to this chart, 25 square feet gives us is $100. 100 square feet is $400. 400 square feet is $1,600, and 1,600 square feet is $6,400. So these are the dollars. Now, I want to know the cost dollars per square foot. Well, I know that $100 gives me 25. Now, when we're finding the unit rate, I also want to mention we always want to put dollars on top. So our dollars will be on top. So we know that $100, again, money goes on top, will give us how many? 25 square feet. So 25 square feet or feet squared. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our top divided by our bottom. So 100 divided by 25, that's going to give us 4. And what this 4 really means is that you solved for $4. This is $4 per, remember, $4 per 1 square foot. Remember, the bottom always has to be 1, so this is going to be our unit rate. $4 gives you 1 foot squared. So $100 gives you 25 foot squared. If we wanted to figure out how much is 2 foot squared, we can just go ahead and double the $4. So 2 foot squared would be 8, and so forth and so forth. Do you see the pattern? Okay? All right. I would like for you now to take out a piece of paper and on your own, if you can try examples 1, 2, and 3. They may be a little bit challenging, but again, if you have any questions on them, please feel free to ask me tomorrow in class. Pause the video, solve the problem, and write down your answers, please, on a separate sheet of paper. All right. In example 3, we have a graph, and the graph here shows the speed of a subway car, how fast the subway is going. So we want to find the speed in miles per minute. It looks like we don't know how fast it goes in 1 minute, but we do know other information. So we're going to go ahead and find that, and then we're going to compare the speed to this answer in example 3 to example 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and study our map. So it looks like time is at the bottom, so that that's represented in X. And then it looks like distance is going to be on the y-axis, so that's going to be y. And if you remember when we're graphing, x comes first and then comes y. So I'm going to choose a point. It doesn't matter which point. Again, I always like to choose the point that's the easiest, or a fraction or number that's the smallest and easiest. So I see that this point has a fraction of 1/2 and 1/4. I like that one better than 3, and then this mixed fraction 1 and 1/2. So we're going to use this point. right here. So if you look at this, this is X, this is Y. Okay, now they're talking about miles per minute, so I'm going to go ahead and put miles per minute. Again, how did I know to write the ratio this way? Because the sentence here says miles first and then minutes, so I'm going to put miles. What it says first and then minute at the bottom. So that's how you can also figure out how to write your ratio or your fraction. Okay, now for our miles, I see that miles is right here. Okay, that represents my y, so I'm just going to go look at my y, and miles is 1/4. So I'm going to put 1/4 here. And then minutes is right here, and that is represented in x. So I'm going to go look at my x. That's 1/2. And to find the rate, all you need to do is divide the top into the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and take 1/4 and divide it by 1/2. But I noticed when you're dividing a fraction, you can't divide a fraction. So I'm going to go ahead and just write this out over so you can see we're dividing two fractions. We can't divide two fractions, so we're going to change it to the reciprocal, the second one. So keep, flip, and then change. Now we can solve it. 1 times 2 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And if you remember, you always have to reduce your fractions here. So we're going to reduce this, and our final answer is 1/2. So what does that 1/2 mean? That 1/2 basically means it takes a half a mile for 1 minute. So let's compare these two answers. So in this graph that they said, it says 1/4 mile is a half a minute. But we want to know what is 1 minute. What's 1 full minute? So 1 full minute, you can go half a mile. So it's a little bit more than 1/4. So compare the speed to of this answer to example 1. We're going to go back to example 1 and see. In example 1, it says it looks like we take a half a mile for 1 minute. So they want to know what's the comparison. I can say that half a mile in 1 minute. So example 1 and example 3 has the same subway car speed. Okay? All right. I would like for you to continue on the same paper of your homework for the on your own to do number 4. Again, pause the video, solve the problem, and write down your answer. Any questions, please ask me tomorrow. All right. We're going to go ahead and do our last example, example number 4. So it says here, you mix a half a cup of yellow paint for every 3/4 cup of blue paint. Now, when you mix this, you get 15 cups of green paint. So if you remember in art, if you have yellow and blue together, so half of a yellow, and if you have blue, it gives you what? Green. So it says that you use, for every half a cup of yellow, you use 3/4 cup of blue, and in the end, you get 15 cups of green. But the question is, how many yellow cups did you really use then? They just said this is how much you mix, but they didn't tell you how many cups. And this part, how many cups of blue did you really mix? They just said you used 3/4 cups. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a few ratios to figure out how many cups of yellow and how many cups of blue. So I'm going to go ahead and divide this into 2 columns so you can see. And I would like you to also write that down. So it seems like for every, you use a half a cup. So it seems like you use a half a cup of yellow. So half a cup of yellow paint for every 3/4 cup of blue paint. So half a cup of yellow gives you, so, oh, I'm sorry. Let me say this one more time. So for half a cup of yellow, to make green, you will have to use a half a cup of yellow plus blue to get the green. So this part on top is the yellow, but the bottom part is the green. This is how much of yellow you use to get this much of green. So we're going to set up the same thing over here. This is how much of the blue you use together to get the green. So to get the green, we had to use half a cup of yellow plus 3/4 cups of green. So what we're doing here is we're setting up each side. Hold on one second. We're setting up each side. This is half a cup of yellow, 3/4 cups of blue, but we don't know how many together they make green, but we don't know how many cups of each. So we need to figure out the bottom part first. What's a half plus 3/4? A half plus 3/4, I'm going to go ahead and set this up as 4 as their denominator. In our previous chapter, we learned, remember, 2 times what is 4? 2 times 2. So 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times what is 4? 4 times 1. So 1 times 3 is 3. So I'm going to go ahead and add that up, and I get 5/4. So if you notice, it's going to be the same thing over here, 5/4. It's the same as over here.